I'm going to repair my sister's cuckoo clock. It dropped off the wall. It didn't do that much damage, but the chains came apart. So I'm going to take it all apart and clean it and put it back together. There's certain things that you need when we're repairing clocks. I like using a towel. That way you could find your parts easily. I like using a connector for plumbing. You could set your movement down in there. There's two different sizes on this connector. There's this size, and then there's a bigger size, so it handles both movements. You're going to need your standard tools, such as a pair of tweezers, screwdrivers, and a good work area and lights. So let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do when repairing a cuckoo clock, where you have to take the movement out, is take off the hands. This particular movement has a nut on the end of the hands, and you remove that. And try to put all your parts in the same place, and you take off your hands. There's a compression fitting where the hour hand sits on, and it allows you to adjust the hour hand to make sure that it is in the proper setting on the hour time. And then you just remove that was the minute hand, and this is the hour hand. And the hour hand is the smallest hand, and it is just compression fit into the clock. Now that you have that done, because we're going to take out the movement, you have to take and release the cuckoo. There's a wire here. Some people say get out a pair of pliers to bend this wire. For me, it's easy just to use your fingers to bend the wire at a 90 degree, and then you can remove the wire from the door, which allows the cuckoo to fall in. Now there's like a staple that they use for the door. Make sure when you are removing the catch for the bird from the door that you don't loosen the staple. The door also is connected with a bigger piece of wire that looks like a great big staple that fits in the holes in the side of the door. If your door is loose, you just push it back onto the staples. The next thing we have to do is remove the back door. On this particular clock, there's just one little tab that you pull, and then you can remove the back door. The back door has the gong on it, and you remove that out of the way, and then you have your bellows on the left and right side of the clock. But in order to get the movement out, you have to take the bellows out. This is done by removing each screw, and this is the bellow hole. A lot of people ask all the time, how do you quiet your clock? You could take a piece of tape and put over this hole, and the clock will not make as much noise. In this particular case, you could also take a piece of cloth or piece of sponge or anything laying around your house and shove in this hole. But when you do that, make sure that you do not put it into the slots of the bellow, or it could be hard getting that object out of the bellow when you want to make it cuckoo loud again. These bellows have a screw and a nail. You can take this screw out, and after you take this screw out, you can take a flat screwdriver and pry the bellow out. Some bellows are glued into the clock, and those are harder to take out, but you can take them out, but you have to be slow about doing it. Take a sharp extracto knife and cut along this edge using a flat screwdriver. If you mess it up, it could break on you and you might have to replace the whole bellow. If you pop it out, the ones that are glued, as long as you don't tear it up that much, you can normally glue them in the same spot and they will continue to work. I don't have a stand for my camera, so I'm doing this all by hand. So there will be some portions where I pause the video and come back to it. Now let's remove the bellows. My eyesight is not as good as what it used to be. You could buy this typical visor, magnifying visor, at Time Savers for around $12. You could spend more, but you don't have to. This magnifies up to 10 times. It has three actually different magnifiers. It has the first one, and then you could flip this part up, which magnifies it in even more. And then you have the loop where you get your 10 times the magnification with all three of these things utilized. This particular magnifier also has a light on it, and that comes in handy. And you will have to replace the batteries all the time on these if you use the light that much. But again, they're only about $12 at Time Savers, and I'm not promoting Time Savers. That's just the company I use to order my stuff from. This thing is adjustable, and like I said, you could spend a lot more on magnifiers. I've seen them go over $50 at Time Savers, but I buy this one. There's also cheaper ones, but I think the $12, this particular magnifier works perfect for me. Like I said, once you got the screw out, there's a nail that also holds this thing in place. All you got to do is take a flat screwdriver and pry on it, and it will pop off. There's the nail. There's the bellow with the wire attached. And now you want to, let me see if I can focus this thing in. You want to remove the wire that's coming down from the levers. I'm going to do that. Here is the bellow removed from the clock. Sometimes the end of this wire is bent, and so you might have to open it to take it out of the clock. What I like doing with my bellows is taking a rubber band and going around the wire and the bellow so I know that this particular wire went with this particular bellow when I go to put them back in the clock. So now I got the rubber band around the bellow and nothing is going to come loose from this. When you go to put the bellow back in the clock, you will notice two holes. One hole has to be aligned up with the nail that's in the clock, and the other hole is for the screw that you took out of the clock. And this is the opening that makes the noise. And like I said, if you want to soften your cuckoo, you put a piece of cloth or a sponge or anything in here and it will make the cuckoo softer. But just don't put it inside the hole or you might have trouble getting that back out. I got the other bellow out of the clock. This bellow here has a wire attached to the bellow, which is used to lift the bird when it cuckoos. So you have to make sure that this bellow goes on the side where the bird is. Most of the time, these bellows are on the left side of the clock as you're looking at the clock from the back, but I have seen some American clocks where they're on the right side of the clock as you're looking from behind. I have a Seth Thomas clock that is on the right side of the clock as you're looking from behind. I believe it's a Seth Thomas. Don't quote me on that. Laugh out loud. This particular box has a music box with it, and it has 4 screws to take the movement out. Prior to take the movement out, you have to take the chains off. The chains, when it dropped on the floor, the hooks came off of the clock. But when you put the chains back on, you want the hooks and the round washer taken off. In order to take these off, you take a pair of needle nose pliers and hold one end of the loop, and then with your hands you could twist the loop or the weight connector, and it'll actually bend that wire. But you want to, when you put it back on, you want to make sure that it is nice and straight when it goes back on. Also, because this clock has the musical box, you want to pay attention where the levers are. This lever right here activates the music. When you pull on this lever, it is releasing this lever to allow the music to play. There's also this wire right here that when the clock strikes on the hour, this wire stops the fan from rotating. If your music plays while it's cuckooing, it's not supposed to do that, and you might have to adjust this wire just slightly so it touches the fan. Whenever it quits cuckooing, the wire will go to the left toward the pulley to allow the music fan, the governor fan, to move. When it stops cuckooing and your music doesn't play, that is because this wire is still touching the governor fan. So you have to adjust it just slightly so to allow the governor fan to spin. I find that when removing the movement from the clock, it is easier to take the pendulum leader wire out of the clock, which allows things to go a lot smoother. Now, this is the pendulum leader wire. In order to remove it, you have to bend this tab slightly to remove it from the crutch. Also, on a clock like this, where it has a music box and you want to take out the movement, I don't like bending the wire that starts the music, which is this wire right here. See, it's bent at a 90-degree angle so it doesn't get out of this lever. So I like taking the movement out and working it so I can get this wire off the lever. It's easier to remove the bird, and all you have to do is loosen the screw on the bird. Remember, you already released the bird from the door, so now all you got to do is remove the screw, loosen the screw on the bird, and the bird will slide right off of this metal. So I'm going to do that now. I want to take a second and talk about the birds. This lever that connects to the rod on the clock itself is made out of metal. A lot of the ones were made out of plastic, and so when you go to tighten them up, the plastic will break on you. So this is a newer bird, and a lot of the older ones were made of plastic. The tongue on this bird, when it cuckoos, the tongue will come out. You see it moving. This is a newer bird. The original cuckoo clocks have birds that have movable wings and tongues. Here's one of the cuckoo clocks that I was telling you about that has a plastic container, and you could see where it broke. And I have tried gluing these things, and they're a pain. You can get them glued, you think you got it fixed, you go to put it back on the lever, tighten it up, and it breaks again. It is easier just to replace the whole bird, and again, you could buy them off of eBay or Time Savers or wherever you shop. It's easier to replace the bird than trying to fix it. Here is a bird that I have, a clock that was made in about 1908, and it has removable wings, and the tongue moves also. But when you have a bird that is wooden and that is made similar to this, you have an old clock. They do make some birds these days that are movable wings. I believe they're made in Japan or China, but they're made of plastic. Again, these is how you could tell a rough idea how old your clock is. According to my book that I have on cuckoo clocks, one of the first things that they quit doing was making movable wings. So they did away with the movable wings, was one of the first things as they started to modernize the clock. But as you could see, this one has movable wings. With the bird out of the movement, with taking some time and patience, you can get the movement out of the clock without bending that wire that I was talking about. With the movement out of the case, it would be a good time to clean your case. Taking out any spider webs, etc., out of the case. Now this case is really clean because I gave this clock to my sister for Christmas. But if you're going to clean up a case, I like using Old English oil on all my clocks and my antiques. It's a really good oil. It brings the shine back into the wood. And that's going to be part one of I don't know how many parts it's going to take for me to fix this clock. But that is part one of this video. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope y'all continue watching the videos of me fixing this clock.